beautiful Monday evening in Washington, D.C. Let's give you a live look at our U.S. Capitol there, where we head to the Hill. And the madness just beginning for the month of May. Voters in key battleground states will head to the polls for primary elections, highlighting whether Democrats or Republicans have the better hold on their party ahead of the midterms. The states in the spotlight tomorrow: Indiana and Ohio. The race for the Republican Senate nomination in Ohio, one of the most crowded primaries, showcasing some of the wealthiest candidates. Not only that, these races also highlighting the power of former President Donald Trump and whether his influence still carries the Republican Party. Does his endorsement matter or not? Getting us the answers, our D.C. insider, NewsNation Washington Bureau Chief Mike Ficarra. So, Vic, D.C. waiting to see how these primaries shape up. We know some key big races here, but what's at stake really for both parties?
Well, you're right, Nicole. Here we go. This is election eve. Keep kicking off a big week of primaries, especially on the Republican side during the month of May. Every Tuesday of this month, we've got a big showdown, and it's going to tell us the answer to a key question in American politics: just how much power does President Donald Trump, the former president, have over the Republican Party? And if it's any indication the way these candidates are running, it's a lot of power. And joining me now, yes, it's a beautiful evening here in Washington on our rooftop studios, is Axios political reporter Sarah Muha. Welcome, Sarah. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Before I ask you a question, I just want to show you one statistic that gives us a peek behind the curtain of just how valuable Donald Trump's endorsement is to these candidates. Across the Senate primaries in Ohio, that's tomorrow, Alabama later this month, North Carolina and Pennsylvania also later this month, more than $19 million has been spent on ads that mention Donald Trump, whether he's been endorsed or not, the candidate's been endorsed or not. That's more than 54,180 ad spots. That's from Ad Impact, a media tracking firm. You know, what's interesting about this is candidates that aren't even endorsed by Donald Trump, that were passed over by Donald Trump, are still mentioning Donald Trump. So what does that tell us about the kind of power that he has in the Republican Party?
That's right. Well, what's really interesting specifically about Ohio, whose primary we're going to see tomorrow, is that it's a state that used to see a lot of soft-spoken candidates. The senator whose seat is being replaced, Rob Portman, of course. You have Governor DeWine, even former Speaker of the House, John Boehner, comes from Ohio. But what we're instead seeing in this primary, in the Republican primary, is a lot of fighting over who is more alike. Really?
They've gone nose to nose in these debates. They've stood up nose to nose and threatened each other. Just to go over the candidates now, I mean, there's a surge by J.D. Vance after he was endorsed by Donald Trump. There is Josh Mandel, who has been the leader of the race before J.D. Vance in that endorsement. And then a third candidate, I should say, Matt Dolan. And the interesting thing about Matt Dolan is he's running against Trump, more or less. Trump has called him a rhino, all the things that Donald Trump usually calls his political opponent. What can you tell us about this guy? Matt Dolan is making a sudden late surge on the eve of this primary.
Well, think of all of the other candidates are all pro-Trump, or like MAGA candidates, as some of these people call them. They're creating a space for someone else to come up that may not be a Trump-endorsed candidate or someone who's running on the president. Matt Dolan, a billionaire who's funneled millions of dollars into his own campaign. He spent $8.5 million.
His father actually owns the Major League Baseball team in Cleveland. He's a state senator now.
And he is Matt Dolan is a state senator. That's right. And he's funneled $8.5 million into ads. So he's been using all of that in there. And on top of that, he's getting all of the votes from the people who don't want to vote for a Trump support
fascinating thing about Ohio, and it's the same in Wisconsin. The other senator is Sherrod Brown, a liberal. And Ron Johnson and Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin. So we'll see how this works out if a conservative ends up winning. Okay, very quickly, one Democrat, Joe Manchin, we talk about him a lot, but he's actually endorsed a Republican in a West Virginia House race, a Republican at odds with Donald Trump, but a Republican nonetheless, a contended House race. They went from 3 to 2 districts. More talk now about Joe Manchin switching parties, finally becoming a Republican.
Listen, this is not out of the ordinary for Senator Manchin, and especially in a state like West Virginia that has a lot of Republicans. We talked about this last week, that he's supported by many Republicans in his state. That race specifically, it's a Trump-backed Republican versus a not Trump-backed Republican. What Senator Joe Manchin wants likely is bipartisanship to stay in the House, and for somebody to come in that is not a Trumpian Republican, because that's more aligned with his view of the world. Listen, he's endorsed Republicans before. He endorsed Lisa Murkowski in her race and Senator Susan Collins
and the
in
reason
2020.
why President Trump doesn't like this Republican that Manchin's backing is because he voted for the infrastructure bill, something that West Virginia wanted.
Something that West Virginia and Democrats wanted.
Yeah, exactly. That was a heresy as far as Donald Trump was concerned and a lot of conservatives. Okay, finally.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.